Don't bother setting the table for me this year. My sister-in-law smirked, her eyes darting over the Christmas decorations I'd worked so hard to put up. You'll be too busy cooking for all of us. Her words landed like a slap, right there in my own living room, with the tree glowing softly and the lights twinkling in the window. I looked around. My husband's family sat on the couch with smug little smiles, sipping cocoa as if this was already their house. I forced a small laugh, trying to mask the sting. All of you? I asked, though I already knew the answer. She leaned back comfortably. Yes, the whole family. Mom, Dad, my brothers. We'll be staying here for Christmas. And lucky for me, I won't be around to cook or clean. I'm taking a trip. Finally, a vacation I deserve. Her words twisted in my stomach. So she had planned this out. She wasn't asking. She was informing. I looked at my husband, waiting for him to speak up, to defend me, to at least acknowledge the audacity. But he only shrugged. It'll be good for you to bond with them, he said, as if dumping an army of house guests on me for the holidays was some kind of gift. A week of me waiting on them? I snapped before I could stop myself. My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't regret it. No one responded. The room went quiet for a beat, and then they all smiled, the kind of smile that said my protest meant nothing. My mother-in-law reached for one of the sugar cookies I had baked. She held it delicately, inspecting it like she was judging a contest. We'll see how well you manage, she said smoothly. Christmas is about family, after all. Her words were coated in honey, but underneath I heard the test. I heard the judgment. Inside, fury rose like fire in my chest, but I swallowed it. I told myself, not here, not now, so I smiled, the kind of polite, empty smile women like me learn to wear. I folded my hands in my lap and nodded. Of course, I said softly, but inside, I was already making a list, not of groceries or chores, but of every insult, every slight, every little way they turned me into the unpaid servant of my own home. As the evening went on, the chatter around me grew light and cheerful. They laughed about their travel plans, their expensive coats draped over my chairs, their smug jokes about Christmas at our house, my house. I nodded when expected, offered more cocoa when the cups emptied, but my mind was elsewhere. I was calculating, memorizing every expression, every careless word. My husband leaned toward me once, whispering as if it were some reassurance. It's just 1 week, 1 week. The words echoed like a warning. His sister stretched out across the armchair and announced loudly, I'll be gone by the 23rd. Somewhere tropical. I already booked the tickets. You'll take care of everyone here, right? The others chuckled. My husband chuckled. I pressed my lips together, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. The clock ticked loudly in the background, every second hammering the truth deeper. I was trapped. They would descend on my house, take over my space, and expect me to bow my head and serve. But I would not break. Not this time. As I carried the empty cups to the kitchen, I caught their voices behind me. Whispered words, low and cruel, not meant for me to hear. My mother-in-law's voice cut through, soft but sharp as a knife. Finally, we'll see if she's worthy of our son. I froze mid-step, the tray heavy in my hands. They thought this was a test. They thought I would bend, break, and prove my place beneath them. They had no idea what I was capable of, and that night, standing alone in the kitchen with their laughter echoing behind me, I promised myself one thing. This Christmas, the test would not be mine. It would be theirs. The doorbell rang, and my house stopped feeling like mine. The chime echoed through the hallway, and with it came the rush of cold December air. When I opened the door, the wind swept in along with the sight of my husband's family, bundled in luxury coats and scarves, arms weighed down with shiny luggage. Their perfume hit me first, sweet, heavy, expensive. It clashed against the faint cinnamon scent from my modest decorations. They stepped inside as if crossing a threshold into their own home. My mother-in-law kissed the air beside my cheek and said, So warm in here. Good. We'll need every room ready. I forced a smile. Of course. The hallway was immediately choked with their bags, suitcases leaning against the wall I'd just cleaned, boots dripping melted snow onto my rug. My sister-in-law didn't even look at me. She brushed past, tossing her coat across the banister. I told myself, survive this week without breaking. But the assault began almost instantly. Your cooking smells different, my mother-in-law announced after peering into my kitchen. Her nose wrinkled. I brought some of my own spices. I'll show you later how to make things the proper way. Proper. The word sliced through me. Behind her, my brother-in-law dropped onto the sofa, spreading his arms wide across the cushions. This house is ours now. He laughed, reaching for the remote. The television clicked on without so much as a glance in my direction. I looked at my husband, standing silently behind them, waiting, watching, hoping, maybe that he would step in, but he didn't. Instead, he smiled at his brother's joke. "Just make yourselves at home," he said lightly. "Make yourselves at home." It was already happening. My living room, my decorations, my fragile peace, they were all being pushed aside, one careless comment at a time. The next blow came when my mother-in-law unzipped a large box she had brought along. Inside, I saw ornaments wrapped carefully in tissue paper, bright, polished, expensive ones that glittered unnaturally under the light. "These will be perfect," she said, already lifting my own handmade decorations off the tree. "Your things. They're quaint, but this is Christmas, quaint." I wanted to scream. Instead, I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo of the moment, her hand midair as she replaced my ornaments with hers. Proof, because by then, I had already decided. If they were going to treat me like the hired help, then I would document every insult, every cruelty, every theft of dignity. My brother-in-law called out from the couch. "We'll need the master bedroom for naps. Too crowded in the guest rooms." I turned slowly to face him, my voice low but steady. "You'll get exactly what you deserve." He grinned, thinking I was joking. He didn't hear the steel in my voice. The hours dragged on like years. Requests piled on top of criticisms. They wanted coffee, then complained it wasn't strong enough. They wanted dinner, but wrinkled their noses when I placed the dishes down. They spoke around me, not to me, as though I were invisible in my own home. I smiled. I fetched. I nodded. And every time, I pulled my phone from my pocket and pressed record when no one was looking. Voices on tape, laughter over my silence, whispers of entitlement. By the end of the first night, I was exhausted. My hands trembled as I cleaned dishes no one thanked me for, wiped crumbs no one cared about. I stood at the sink staring at my reflection in the window. "Don't break," I whispered to myself. Not yet. Then, as I gathered laundry from the living room, floor, because apparently they believed dirty socks belonged wherever they dropped them, I noticed my husband's phone buzzing. On the coffee table. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But something in me said, "You need to know." I picked it up. A text lit the screen. His mother's name at the top. "Don't worry, Mom. After Christmas, everything will be handled." My breath caught. My fingers went cold. Handled. I set the phone down slowly, carefully, like it might burn me. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I knew one thing. Whatever they were planning, it wasn't about Christmas dinner. And for the first time that day, I didn't just feel tired. I felt the simmer of something else. Resolve, because if they thought they could handle me, they were about to learn exactly who they were underestimating. I wasn't supposed to hear their midnight whispers, but I did. The fire had burned low, casting shadows that flickered across the living room walls. The house was quiet, except for the muffled laughter of my in-laws drifting in from the kitchen. Empty glasses of wine cluttered the coffee table, their rich smell heavy in the air. I had gone to bed hours ago, or at least they thought I had, but sleep wouldn't come. Not with the weight of that text still pressing on my chest. After Christmas, everything will be handled. I padded down the hallway in my slippers, moving slowly, careful not to let the floor creak. Their voices floated toward me, low and conspiratorial. I edged closer to the archway, the glow from the fireplace barely lighting their faces. My mother-in-law's voice was sharp, certain. Once she's worn down, she'll sign. That's the way women like her break. Exhaustion first, then surrender. My breath caught in my throat. Sign? My husband's reply was slurred from wine, but the meaning was clear. After New Year, it'll be easy. She won't fight me. She never does. I gripped the wall to steady myself, my nails biting into the paint. They were talking about me, about my house, about everything I had worked for. His sister giggled, swirling her glass. Honestly, I don't know why you waited so long. She's too soft. One little push, and she'll crumble. The words sliced through me like glass. I pulled my phone from my pocket, thumb trembling as I opened the recording app. If this was their plan, I would not leave it to memory. I pressed record and held my breath. My mother-in-law lowered her voice, but I still caught it. She'll have no choice. Once she's isolated, once we make it clear she doesn't belong, she'll give up that deed. And then everything will finally be where it belongs. Belongs. In her mind, my life, my home, my dignity, it all belonged to them. I swallowed hard, pressing my back flat against the wall. My husband chuckled, a sound I no longer recognized. Don't worry. I'll get her to sign after New Year. She'll think it's routine. She trusts me. Heat flushed through me, a mix of fear and fury. She won't fight me. She never does, he added, almost lazily. And that was the moment something inside me shifted. I had been afraid before. Afraid of the humiliation, the insults, the weight of their presence in my home. But fear was no longer the only thing in me. Something else was growing. Something stronger. I whispered so softly only I could hear it. Not anymore. I pulled back before they noticed me, slipping down the hallway, my phone clutched tight in my hand. The recording was still running, capturing every word. My heart pounded, not from fear of being caught, but from the clarity of what I now understood. They weren't just here for Christmas. They weren't just here to test me, to belittle me, to drain me. They wanted to strip me of everything. I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at the faint light under the door, their shadows still moving across the hall. My husband's voice echoed in my head. She won't fight me. She never does. He thought he knew me. He thought I was weak, pliable, desperate to please. But he was wrong. Because tonight, in the dim glow of the fire, I heard the truth, and the truth gave me power. They wanted to take everything I built, and now I knew exactly what I was fighting for. I stopped being their servant. I started being their shadow. The kitchen clattered with the sound of pans and voices. The mother-in-law directed like a general, barking orders about the roast, the side dishes, even how the plates should be stacked. My brother-in-law sprawled in the living room, feet up, as though the house truly belonged to him. My husband sat with them, laughing, his voice blending with theirs, leaving me in the background, always in the background. But at night, when their laughter quieted and their perfume finally faded from the halls, my secret life began. The glow of my laptop was my weapon, its silent hum the only ally I trusted. While they slept comfortably under my roof, I stayed awake documenting, copying, preparing. I had one rule now: never let them see me break. During the day, I played the role they expected, the quiet, obedient hostess. I poured tea into china cups, smiled at their insults, and tucked away my anger. But behind closed doors, I was something else, a shadow. One evening, while clearing the dining table, I found a thick envelope tucked beneath the mail pile. My husband's handwriting sprawled across it. Inside, my heart stopped. Transfer papers, already drafted. The house, my house, written out as if it could be shifted like a gift ribbon around their necks. I didn't cry. Not anymore. Instead, I slipped the papers into my apron pocket and walked into the kitchen, where my mother-in-law was stirring soup. "Your seasoning smells unusual," she remarked, wrinkling her nose. "Different doesn't always mean worse," I said softly, folding the papers deeper into my pocket, where her sharp eyes couldn't see. That night, I scanned every page, every clause, every deceitful line. I sent them to a lawyer I had secretly contacted. His reply came the next afternoon. "You can protect yourself, but timing is everything. Do not sign anything. Stall." I deleted the email immediately, my fingers trembling but my face steady when my husband asked why dinner wasn't ready. "It's coming," I said, forcing my voice calm, my heart hammering with a secret he didn't know I held. The days blurred, each one a balancing act. They demanded, they criticized, they shifted my furniture as though I were invisible. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I was watching, recording, collecting. My friend, Clara, called one morning after I slipped out under the excuse of buying fresh bread. I told her everything. The whispers by the fireplace, the transfer papers, the plan to erase me. She didn't gasp or doubt me. Instead, she said, "They're underestimating you. Use it. People like them never see the quiet ones coming." Her words struck me like steel. Quiet didn't mean weak. Quiet could mean dangerous. That night at dinner, my husband slid a single sheet of paper across the table. His mother's smug gaze hovered over his shoulder. "Sign this after dinner," he said casually. "It's just routine." I glanced at the paper, recognizing the first page of the transfer draft. My fork paused midair. Then I set it down deliberately. "Routine for who?" I asked, my voice smooth, my eyes locking on his. The air around the table shifted, tight and crackling. His brother chuckled nervously, trying to break the tension. My mother-in-law arched a brow as though daring me to resist. But I didn't touch the pen. I didn't touch the paper. Instead, I smiled, clearing plates as if nothing had happened. Inside, I was fire. Later that night, my phone buzzed beneath my pillow. It was my lawyer. "When they push you, stall until we file. Then strike." I stared at the message, the glow of the screen illuminating my face in the dark. A sense of power, new, sharp, undeniable, coursed through me. They thought they were orchestrating my downfall. What they didn't realize was that I was no longer waiting for rescue. I was sharpening my silence into a weapon, and soon they would feel the cut. Everyone sat at the table as if they owned it. But this time, I wasn't serving smiles. The dining room shimmered with candlelight, the kind of glow meant to soften sharp edges, but it only made theirs more visible. Their luxury coats hung on the backs of chairs, the table heavy with dishes I'd cooked, yet no one thanked me. Laughter bounced between them, rich and dismissive, as if my walls had always belonged to their voices. I sat at the far end, the hostess in name only. My plate cooled untouched while they leaned into one another, clinking glasses, whispering, smiling at jokes that weren't meant for me. Every detail screamed possession, their ornaments glittering on my tree, their wine filling my glasses, their perfume staining the air. I kept my face still. Inside, I carried the weight of my secret weapon. The lawyer's message burned in my mind. When they push you, stall until we file. Then strike. The mother-in-law raised her glass. Finally, this house feels like it belongs to family, she said, eyes glinting as they darted down the length of the table toward me. The brother-in-law chuckled, his fork stabbing into the roast. You've outdone yourself, sis-in-law. This meal almost makes up for the rest of your cooking. His laughter filled the room. My husband didn't stop him. He never did. Instead, he stood, wineglass raised high. To new beginnings, he said, his voice smooth, rehearsed. To family, to what's ours. The words slid under my skin like ice. New beginnings. I knew exactly what he meant. They thought this feast was their victory lap. They thought dessert would be my undoing. I cut a piece of turkey with calm hands. Lovely toast, I murmured, swallowing hard against the acid in my throat. The mother-in-law leaned forward, elbows on the table. You should be grateful, dear, she said sweetly, like a blade hidden in velvet. Not every woman has in-laws who are willing to guide her, to correct her mistakes, to take care of things. I lifted my eyes, met hers without flinching. Grateful for what, exactly? The question dropped like a stone in water. For the first time all evening, silence spread. My husband shifted in his chair, clearing his throat, his fingers tapping against the stem of his glass. His mother gave a tight smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. You'll understand soon, she said softly, her voice almost a warning. I lowered my gaze to my plate, tracing the edge with my fork as though retreating. But inside I was counting heartbeats. Each tick of the clock drew me closer to their move, and mine. They mocked me between bites, picking apart my cooking, my modest decorations, even my job. Your paycheck wouldn't even cover this meal, my brother-in-law snorted. Good thing you married well. Their laughter stung, but I didn't let it show. I chewed slowly, breathed evenly, let their words wash over me like waves against stone, because stone doesn't crumble. When the plates cleared and the candles burned lower, I saw it happen. My husband exchanged a glance with his mother, a silent cue I might have missed once, but not now. He reached beneath the table, his hand brushing the folder I knew too well. The papers, the ones I had already scanned, already locked away as evidence of their betrayal. He smiled at me, too warmly. Before dessert, he said, his voice laced with false tenderness. Let's take care of something important. My heart thudded in my chest, but my face stayed calm. He slid the papers across the table, the sound of them brushing the linen like a drumbeat. The candlelight flickered across the bold black letters at the top. Transfer of ownership. Sign here, love. His voice carried the weight of expectation, of triumph. His mother's lips curved in satisfaction. His brother leaned back smugly in his chair. All eyes turned to me, and I smiled, because they had no idea how close they were to losing everything. He slid the papers toward me. He didn't know the real trap was already set. The dining room froze. The only sound was the faint hiss of candle flames. My husband's hand rested on the folder, pushing it closer. His eyes locked on me like a predator confident in the kill. Just formal, he said smoothly. Routine. Nothing to worry about. The mother-in-law leaned forward, eyes glittering with victory. Go on, dear. It's only a signature. Be grateful your husband knows how to manage things. My brother-in-law chuckled low, muttering, End of story. I placed my hands on the folder. My pulse hammered, but my face was calm, almost serene. Formal? I repeated softly. My fingers flipped the pages, steady, deliberate. The weight of silence pressed in as their smug smiles waited for my obedience. Instead, I began to read. Out loud. Clause 12, I said clearly, my voice cutting through the air. All rights and ownership of the property shall transfer solely to the husband, with no contest from the wife. The laughter died instantly. My mother-in-law's eyes flickered. My brother-in-law shifted uncomfortably, and my husband's smile faltered. I looked up, letting the silence stretch before speaking again. That doesn't sound very routine, does it? The mother-in-law recovered first. You're overreacting. You wouldn't understand legal documents, dear. It's best to leave these matters to the family, I interrupted sharply. Or to the people who whisper by fireplaces after midnight, planning how to force me out of my own home. Their faces drained. My husband's jaw tightened. You were spying? I was listening, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. With one tap, their voices filled the air. The hiss of the fireplace, the clink of glasses, the damning words replayed for everyone to hear. Once she's worn down, she'll sign. She won't fight me. She never does. She'll have no choice. The recording ended. Silence crashed in its place. My husband's face flushed with rage. You wouldn't dare use that. I leaned back, folding my arms, my voice steady as stone. Watch me. The brother-in-law muttered a curse under his breath. My mother-in-law sputtered. You've twisted everything. No court will. I cut her off with the final card I had been waiting to play. From my bag, I pulled out a crisp letter and set it on the table. This is an injunction from my lawyer. Filed this morning. It freezes all joint accounts and protects my assets from transfer until further notice. My husband snatched it up, scanning the bold letterhead, his eyes narrowing. His hand trembled slightly as he read. You've gone behind my back? I tilted my head. Funny. Isn't that exactly what you've been doing to me? The air was thick, the candles sputtering as if straining to stay lit. No one spoke. For the first time, I wasn't the quiet one being swallowed by their noise. I was the voice that silenced theirs. I will not sign, I said, my words sharp, deliberate. Not tonight, not ever. And while you were plotting, I was preparing. This marriage? Consider it under review. My lawyer will handle the rest. My husband slammed his fist on the table, rattling the silverware. You can't walk away from me. But I was already rising from my chair. My legs felt strong, every step steady. I can, and I will. The mother-in-law's voice cracked through the heavy silence. Ungrateful. After everything, I turned to her, my voice low but unshakable. You were right about one thing. This house belongs to family, but not your family. Not anymore. I picked up my coat from the chair, slipped my phone into my pocket, and walked toward the door. Behind me, their stunned silence was louder than any scream. As the cold December air hit my face, my phone buzzed. A text from my lawyer glowed on the screen. Ready for tomorrow's filing? I typed 2 words back, my breath curling white into the night. Do it. And with that, I stepped into the darkness, leaving them trapped in the ruins of their own scheme. Sometimes peace is louder than applause. The house was quiet again, the kind of quiet that hummed, soft and steady, wrapping around me like a blanket I hadn't felt in years. The Christmas tree still stood in the corner, its ornaments catching the morning light, but it no longer felt invaded. No perfume lingered, no mocking voices echoed through the halls, no footsteps rearranging my world. It was mine, finally mine. I walked slowly through each room, touching the back of a chair here, smoothing the fabric of the couch there, reclaiming them not as objects, but as proof that I had endured, proof that I had chosen to fight. And yet, in the stillness, doubt whispered. Had I done the right thing? Should I have tried harder to keep the family together? Was I wrong to expose them at the table, to walk out, to call my lawyer and set the separation in motion? But then, the memories came. His smirk as he slid the papers across the table, his mother's voice calling me ungrateful, his brother laughing at my independence. I remembered the whispers by the fire, the plan to break me down, to erase me from my own life, and I knew I hadn't destroyed a family. They had never been my family. I had destroyed my chains. Clara stopped by that afternoon, her arms full of fresh bread and a bottle of wine. She hugged me tightly, no judgment in her eyes, only pride. You didn't lose a family, she said firmly. You lost chains. Tears stung my eyes, but they weren't from sorrow. They were from recognition. She was right, and I'm never wearing them again, I said, my voice steady, the words leaving my lips like a vow. Neighbors came in the days that followed, dropping off little notes, warm meals, quiet encouragement. One told me she had overheard bits of what happened and wished she'd spoken up sooner. Another said, "You were braver than most of us could be." Their words were small, but together, they filled the empty spaces in my chest. The legal process moved swiftly. My accounts unfroze. The house was secured in my name. The lawyer filed the first papers for divorce, and for the first time in years, I signed something with no hesitation, no pressure, no eyes watching to make sure I obeyed. My hand didn't tremble. Every signature was a reclaiming of my life, At night, I lit only a few candles and sat by the fireplace, the same place I had once overheard their schemes. But this time the silence wasn't threatening. It was healing. The fire popped and cracked, each spark like punctuation on the story I was closing. I thought of my husband's final words at the table. "You can't walk away from me." But I had. And as the days slid toward the new year, the fear I once carried melted into something else. Strength, clarity, calm. On New Year's Eve, I poured myself a glass of champagne, just one, and stood at the window watching the faint glow of fireworks from nearby streets. My reflection stared back. Tired, yes, but no longer small. No one was there to demand, to mock, to steal. There was only me. And that was enough. I raised my glass to the quiet. "This new year," I whispered, my voice strong, steady, unshakable. "I choose myself." And the silence, warm and sure, answered back. "This new year, I choose myself." If you believe dignity is worth more than anyone's approval, subscribe for more stories like this. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done at that Christmas table?